There we go.
There we go. Well.
Yes, well, a deep subject, or if you turn it on its side, it becomes a tunnel. Regardless, it's a very, very long tunnel or a very, very deep well. And it seems to be like most things when we ask the rhetorical question, how deep can it go or how long can this tunnel last? People are once again taking it as a challenge and rising to supersede our expectations.
That is deep, Bob. That is deep. Today, Sunday, the 18th of January, and I have to tell you, I'm depressed with what I have witnessed over the past few days with respect to what's happening to this great country, once great country of ours.
Once great country, yeah.
We're in terrible trouble here. Terrible.
So I guess the task for today is try to stay on to the new terminology of 3D. You've already mentioned the first one, depressed. Demoralized comes to mind. Demonized comes to mind. Maybe there's another D. Maybe we can even beat the 3D and go into a 4D. I don't know. That'll be a challenge. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, well, where do we start?
Well, I guess to me, the logical one would be the last D that I mentioned. Right? I mean, we've been demonized by our supposedly smart intelligence man who looks good in a suit, who is doing everything in his power, I think, to reduce us to less than what we were before. And, you know, after 10 years of this bunch running the country, that's almost, you know, be well at the bottom of that deep hole that we were talking about. You know, he does everything that he seems to want because he thinks that people are going to be doing his bidding. Like, I'm sorry, where does this guy get off to put out on a next platform statement that if the U.S. invades Greenland, he'll go to war with the United States? First and foremost, we don't have Parliament recalled. Secondly, I don't think that it's ever gone to any kind of discussion or vote in the House of Commons. Thirdly, what armed forces are we going to put against? I mean, all they have to do is put 2 aircraft carriers, one on the east on the Atlantic side, one on the west on the Pacific side, and they got more airplanes than they do. There's probably more armed forces personnel in those 2 crafts, and not even taking into account their own support ships that go with that, than we have in our entire military. Like, give your head a shake here. And if you don't see this, folks, particularly us here in Canada, then maybe go back to smoking that wacky tobacco that Trudeau said we could do, because it ain't going to get any better.
No, I think this kind of fast, loose talk is exceedingly dangerous. First of all, you know, the whole issue of Greenland is none of our business from the perspective
No,
of
absolutely.
what Washington, Copenhagen, and the Greenlanders go through. To jump the shark here and start talking about how we're going to defend Greenland from the Americans, when the Europeans have put 36 people onto the island last week as the force majeure to deal with this completely crazy talk of invading Greenland. And the United States isn't going to invade anybody in Greenland. Okay, the reality is there are bases in Greenland that have been there since the Second World War, which are run by the United States military. So it's not like they're going there. They're already there, FYI, Mr. Carney. And which army did you conscript that is going to take on the world's only superpower, nuclear superpower? Okay. Uh, are you going to get the people that you imported from various parts of the world that work at Tim Hortons? Are they going to be your cannon fodder to go on after the Americans? This is ridiculous. I'm sorry. This is so absurd. But what's frightening for me is that there are, as lunatic as this guy's statement is, there are equally lunatic people roaming around inside the Pentagon or at Fox News or wherever that think that this is a direct challenge by Canada to the United States. Okay. And every time the United States gets a little bit nuts about the direct challenge to their authority, bad things happen. Okay. So I would not trifle with this notion that we're going to go kinetic. Who's we? Okay,
Well,
don't include me. I have no
pre-production, Tom,
intention.
we did talk about that pre-production. And, to all the elbows up and liberal people who were so incensed that we were going to become the 51st state, if we hadn't elected St. Carney to the level of popedom here, uh, talk like this, take on the United States, go to war with the United States. What better way is there to become the 51st state? Because I'm sorry, I love the armed forces. I have a lot of respect for them, but let's give our head a shake here. We do not have the ships, the manpower, the air power, the tank power, any kind of power to take on anything that the United States has. So it would be a very, very simple, we're going to war, okay, we give up, because that's about how quick this whole thing would be. And the minute you say I give up, what do you become? You become an American trust territory, an American colony, call it what you will, but that's what you end up. So you elected St. Carney to be the Pope of Canada, and he's already talking about stupid things like going to war with. This is not the mouse that roared. I'm sorry, it's
Yeah.
not.
Well, this is the pipsqueak that squeaked. I mean,
And
this
the only reason he squeaked is because he got stepped on.
the absurdity of the comment. But as I say, you've got a, by virtue of the commentary made by him and his ilk, that the Orange Man is unstable. Why would you provoke someone who's unstable? Have you lost your mind? Well, possibly yes. Or you have other intentions, because this is evil. I'm sorry, it's just plain evil. This is from a government that, as we spoke in pre-production, and has to be underscored again here, that's been told that it acted illegally twice. Okay, first they were told to act legally, then they appeal it and are again told they acted illegally. All right, like clearly they have no principles, they have no ethics, and they're delusional.
Well,
So
and again, the other side of this coin, Tom, is, and again, I can't remember where I heard it, read it, saw it. One of the other side, I guess, the ones that were affected by the invocation of the Emergency Act, basically said after the first appeal or the first judgment came down, it was an 800-page document that outlined a lot of things. Now, it might be 700, might be 900, I don't know. Somebody had said 800. Maybe it's a number I made up. Regardless, it was a huge document.
yes,
Within 1/2 hour, 30 minutes, the government decided it was going to appeal the decision. Now, I don't care if you're a Mensa speed reader. There is no way that you could have read that document and come to the conclusions that there were grounds for appeal in there in 30 minutes. Now, I think the long-term game here is like everything else we do in Canada is that we delay and delay and delay. We play the magician by saying, look over here, Greenland. Oh, look over here, China. Oh, look over here, EU. And doing exactly what they want it to do is having all of the people who are becoming like mindless sheep following the diatribe that's coming out of Ottawa, so that we don't concentrate on what the real problem is, which is what the government is doing to us.
It's unfathomable that we would go up against the U.S. in any kinetic way. It's just so bizarre. But if you want to piss off lunatics south of the border, this is how you do it, because that's the scary part. Okay.
Well, yeah.
These are, this is not a rational thing to say to a superpower, which already has enough lunatics running around loose by the admission of the government and the pundits in this country. Why would you do that? Are you really that stupid? Because there's no other explanation. You'd have to be cognitively impaired to put it mildly, or a moron, so you really understand what you're just a damn moron if you think you're going to do a kinetic action with
Well,
the United States.
and again, pre-production, we talked about this. You can say that those people in the States are perhaps unbalanced. And I'm not saying that in a mean way. I'm just saying that they don't think the way we think, or that they think differently. So all of a sudden it's that government wedge that's going in between us. And they could be right-leaning, unstable people, or they could be left-leaning, unstable people. But we, like you have mentioned before, tend to forget that once there is an object threat or an object direct punch to the American psyche, that left and right goes away. They are first and foremost Americans. Absolutely. And we in Canada forget that because, while we're busy trying to decide which gender we want to be, the concept of patriotism, if you ranked it, would probably be on a list of 10, 45th. We just do not have that same concept. We like our country. Oh, we have good health care. Oh, we have this. Oh, we have. Well, I'm sorry, but those are negligible things. And you talk to a lot of the people in Canada now, where we have, what would they say, 26,000 people last year died waiting for their health care. How many people died in the emergency room because we don't have doctors? Give up this whole thing on we've got a great healthcare system, because we don't. Yeah,
well, the fundamental difference between getting people worked up over what your intent is in a military fashion is that, as you pointed out, when an American feels slighted, being a Democrat or Republican goes out the window. He becomes an American. Canadians trying to dream up, the Liberals trying to dream up a boogeyman that will unite Canadians who are hyphenated all over the place. You have a hyphen between nationality, you have a hyphen between gender, you have a hyphen between social status, you have a hyphen between religion, Canada, hyphen whatever you like. That's not a cohesive bunch. You're not going to get Canadians to rally around, this concept. What are you talking about? Okay, you can't even deal with the Palestinians every day in downtown Toronto making a hell of a mess, or selling off your properties in the West Coast to people who don't even represent the native indigenous people of the coast. You got some Rockefeller Foundation bunch going around telling you can't do this and you can't. What are you talking about? There's no cohesiveness. There's only two provinces in this country who've got their heads screwed on right at the moment, as far as I'm concerned, and that's Alberta and Quebec, who realize that this crazy thing called Canada, it just doesn't work for them anymore, and this is one of the reasons it doesn't. But this statement out of officially out of the mouth of the Prime Minister of Canada, that he's prepared to go toe-to-toe with the United States over Greenland, is frightening,
Well,
because he
and
really
it is.
doesn't grasp the big picture here, or is deliberately trying to put us into a very, very difficult spot.
Well, whatever it is, it's still that classic deflection. You know, if I keep your mind occupied on something else that is totally inane and stupid, you're not going to be seeing what I'm actually really doing. You know, and I guess it goes back to, like, we've got, depending, as we've said before, do we have 36 million or 41 million when we have 5 million people that we have no idea who they are or where they are?
Why they're here.
And they're all hyphenated. It comes back to the government policy that goes back to when you and I were boy immigration officers. We were bringing people in so they can become part of the cultural mosaic.
Make my country your country. Do you remember
Yeah,
that?
that kind of nonsense. And it's
Yeah.
starting to come back and roost now with the, would any of, as you said, these hyphenated Canadians, would they stand up for this country? Or would they go back to their original country? Or would they surprise us and actually fight for this country? I don't know. But the difference is the
I'm not
Americans.
going to, and I'm not a hyphenated Canadian. You think
Well,
I'm going to go to war with the United States?
well, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, your
If I
mind.
was thinking that way, Tom, I'd be off to the psychiatrist to get a statement to say that I'm mentally insane. But you know, the difference between our policy and the U.S. policy, again, the big cultural mosaic versus the melting pot. I venture to say that, you know, prior to 10 years ago, it didn't really matter in the United States if you were a alien resident or whether you were a natural born U.S. resident. You resonated with the government, and if the government said we're going to war, then everybody would be American, and they would be jumping onto the recruitment lists and everything else. 50
Look,
years ago, we wouldn't have the same thing because we were trying to get people into this
look,
mosaic.
This nonsense, because it's utter nonsense, but it's dangerous nonsense, because sometimes, it's like a virus. All you need is a little bug to start spreading, and craziness happens, like a bug spreading that takes over the host. This is how accidents happen politically, and this is an accident in slow
Waiting to
motion.
happen.
Well, we're watching it. This is the accident that we're watching happen in slow motion, and all. It's why are we suddenly taking up a negative position on behalf of a country or a society we know nothing about? Okay, we're suddenly going to worry about Denmark and Greenland. What is it? And we're going to forsake our history, our economy, our traditions, our ties with a country that we until recently basically looked very similar to. Now, it could be argued that the last 10 years has been a makeover to make us very different from our neighbor next door. And suddenly we seem to share, according to the current leadership, the same values as Hamas and the Islamic movement, because the Muslim movement and the Canadian values are the same. This is what Carney said, okay? Or, we're cozying up to an authoritarian dictatorship in China because we have shared so much in the past and have so much potential in the future. Oh, really?
And we now have, to quote the Prime Minister, a new world order.
Exactly.
Now this guy, is he deranged? Like, I mean,
well, there's certainly some cognitive trouble somewhere here. I'm sorry, but it's like the deals that are being made, supposedly, which the CTV and CBC pundits. Oh, look at we're diversifying with a number 2 trading partner. Yeah, the number
which
1
takes
trading
5%.
partner. That's right. The number 1 trading partner we're going to declare war on. The number 2 trading partner, which is 6% of our trade, they're our new saviors. And those other fools across the Atlantic who want to go fight Russians all over the place, they're our pals too. Like, have you lost your mind? And I think that basically I'm answering my own question. These people have lost their minds. And the rest of us who's sitting around here going, like, I don't get it, are going to be behind the eight ball if we let this thing go too much further. But I'm worried about, like I said, the lunatics to the south of us who buy into this threat, which is a complete and utter nonsense. But it doesn't take much to get crazy people going. You know,
Well,
there are enough warmongers floating around in Washington that go, those Canadians, you know, those guys turned their backs on us after all the time we were nice to them for decades. Those guys have been turned by the communist Chinese. You know, there's a lot of screwballs down there will buy into that. And trust me,
well,
I don't want the 82nd Airborne landing at Pearson Airport. This is not a good idea.
well, and it's not, as we say, it's not just a screwball thing. It's the way society works. You know, it's, and it's not even society. It's if you're in a schoolyard, right? And there's always going to be that one person everybody wants to pick on. You don't know why, but you know, oh, gee, Tommy's picking on Frank, so let's pick on Frank. Because if we pick on Frank, he's not going to pick on me, right? And that's the way we've been for a long time. You know, we after the Second World, maybe after Korea, I don't know. We had a contingent of people in Korea and fought alongside the Americans quite well. But it seems after that, and again, to all you liberal people out here, I think the worst thing that happened to this country is when Mr. Pearson got his Nobel Peace Prize for creating a peacekeeping force out of military. You know, you don't take people who are trained to kill and make them peacekeepers. I'm sorry, you don't.
No, I agree.
Uh,
It's a noble idea, as in the Nobel Prize, but it's not hasn't turned out to be practical because, in fact, what war has the UN in its 80-year history ever stopped?
well, and they created quite a few, and
That's
you know,
true.
out here in BC in particular, you know, there's an awful lot of upset people over the UNDRIP, the United Nations Declaration of the Indigenous Persons, which has now been melded into law here in BC. I don't know where that's going to end up, and I don't know how that's going to end up, but it is not playing out well where people can't sell their houses. Property values have dropped. You know, there's a lot of things that take into account for that.
Yeah.
But the easiest one is it's because of that stupid DRIPA law that was enacted here, you know.
Well, the globalist influence over the last 10 years, the whole WEF Davos bullshit has been deeply embedded in Ottawa's elites, and it is to the detriment of this country.
Mhm.
And just to segue on that, I like to ask these geniuses, and we talked about this in pre-production, what exactly is China going to buy? What does China need that Canada makes? What does the EU want to buy from Canada that Canada makes? I'm not talking about digging stuff out of the ground or pumping, you know, gas out and putting it. Okay, because what exactly does China need from Canada that we actually make, or India for that matter? What do we make in Canada? All right. What same in the EU? What is it does the EU want that we make in this country? Because once you take away the natural resources and the trees you cut down and all that, ship that stuff over there, and then it comes back and we buy it already made into something tangible, there's no value added there. Okay.
We're
Because
doing it
nobody,
anyway. Yeah.
no, because nobody of this genius bunch ever says to the Canadian public, uh, well, they're going to buy cars from us. No. They're going to buy electronics from us. No. They're going to buy finished agricultural products from us. No. They're going to buy dairy product. No. They're not buying anything from us. Okay. That, and if they do, it's minuscule compared to what we buy from them, that it's a finished product, be that
Mhm.
automobiles, laptops, cheese, I don't care what, okay? It is a one-way street of natural resources. And when they talk about Canada as nothing more than hewers of wood and drawers of water, that's all this guy is doing right now, okay? Because that's the truth. So I urge every one of the people who watch us, who think we're making this up, write to your Liberal MP and ask him, or write to the Prime Minister, say, what exactly did China say to you they're going to buy from us that is not dug out of the ground raw and shipped
Yeah.
over? Okay?
Yeah.
Because there is
Well, and I would say not just your Liberal, ask your local MP, whether they're an NDP, a Green, a Conservative, a Bloc, whatever it happens to be, because I'm sure that they can raise something like that on question if the House ever gets back after their Christmas vacation to put that on. Like, let's have a debate. What is it? You know, let's define something. Let's get it on record. And be very, very hard pressed to do. There's no
Well,
question about that.
You're bringing up question period. You know, question period is not answer period.
I know,
So-
but it's questions, and then maybe if people actually listen to this, and I'm pretty sure that it would be like Mr. Carney's New World Order statement that has now disappeared from the CBC in its entirety.
That is so.
They might just jump on that because they figure that this is something we can trap the opposition with and make them look like they're a bunch of Neanderthals. But if the average person got around to this and started thinking about, geez, maybe that is right. Maybe what are we actually getting from this? And we've mentioned it before, you know, St. Carney was off to, I forget where he was off to, Indonesia. How many Indonesians have actually come to Canada to look at what their government has signed? What is it that actually Indonesia wanted from us? And that's another thing. We're going to have a defense pact with Indonesia and the Philippines.
Oh, they're going to probably go to war with the U.S. as an ally of Canada. Oh, I see the planning ahead here. I missed it. But where's my tinfoil hat? Jeez.
Anyway, I mean, that pretty well wraps up the first D. I mean, I haven't even got to the second two Ds yet, but holy smokes.
No, we're in deep. Listen, this is scary stuff. Okay, not to put too fine a point on it. You don't do this. This is irrational. Okay, this is a government that doesn't care that they break the law. You know, it's compounded by a media that's come along and said, well, that's ancient history.
Well,
you know, why would you talk about? They're the new government. The new government. Well, it's not the same prime minister. It's a different guy. Same ministers in his cabinet that were involved in all that.
I know, and that's one of the small little irks that he's not even a new government anymore. He's been in for 3/4 of a year, and he's not a new government. And to start off, they were never a new government.
Of course not.
Because it's the same old usual suspects that are they might not be in their same portfolios, but they're the same inner circle. And I don't know where it's going to end, how it's going to end. Certainly I can't even look at a crystal ball because it's so cloudy and foggy that I don't think anybody would be, not even Nostradamus would be able to read this one, folks, I'll tell you.
I'm going to go on record here because, you know, the internet is forever. But the United States does not have to fear me. I'm not going to stand in their way if they're going to, get really nuts about this. Because this is we're rational about this. Okay, we can be the best of friends and disagree on stuff, but we're not going to do what this joker of a leader has said over something as bizarre as Greenland. This is so nuts that don't worry. I'm pretty sure there are lots of others in this country are going to say, nah, I don't think so. And I certainly don't think you have to worry about the 3 or 4 million people who we've imported here who really have no idea what's going. They don't care about any of this conversation anyway. So It's
Well, I would venture to say that they would have been an airplane out of here pretty darn quick anyway.
of course, but again, like I said, it's distracting. It's depressing, and it's just plain dumb. You know.
So, yeah. Well, I guess it gets back to that old adage, people who live in glass houses shouldn't throw rocks. And maybe it's time that we started looking at this glass house, and instead of looking out, we should get on the outside and start looking in and just seeing how much of a mess as a country we're in, particularly over the last decade. But even before that, when we started selling off our resources to other countries and really getting nothing back, you know.
This is the whole point, because how did we get here? Let's just switch tracks here for a second, and about all these deals that this banker is trying to make. We're an economy that is consumer driven and service based. We've deindustrialized, much like the United States, much like Europe. You know, the lazy people who wanted to make a lot of money in the last 30 years basically said, oh, those Chinese guys work for peanuts, so let's just move all our manufacturing over there and we'll buy it from them. You know, let them despoil their environment. Let them build coal plants. Let them make cheap laptops and cheap cars and whatever. And we'll buy them for cheap because we don't want to really get our hands dirty. Okay, because this works. We're going to have a pristine neighborhood. We're not going to mess up the place with dirty old plants. And you guys work for cheap, and our consumers can afford this because we just dig stuff out of the ground, ship it to you, you pay for it, and you send it back here. And but that runway has kind of run out of distance here, so to speak. Okay, so now and unlike apparently our new adversary to the south of us, who figured out, you know what, this is not doable strategically. You can't keep going if you go deep into debt and you're buying stuff with money you don't have to please people who don't like you. This just doesn't work. So we're not in step with this. This is the problem. So this guy goes over to China, goes and does the whole WEF fandango over in Davos and in Qatar. But he never tells you what exactly it is that we're going to sell these people other than our souls. All right. So what's happening is very clear. We're behind the eight ball because we don't make anything. And we're not in touch with the reality of the guys to the south of us have said, you know what? American car plants are going to make cars in the United States. You want to buy our cars, fine. But Canadians won't have the money to buy it because we're not making anything. You got to have something in exchange. Okay. And trying to go through the back door in Beijing to get into the BRICS group, which is, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Yeah. Like, what are you doing here? Who asked you to do that? Because that's where this is going. I don't understand how you're going to be talking about beating the hell out of the Russians through Zelensky's, the proxy war there, but you're now going to get fast and loose with China, who, by the way, supports that war for the Russians. Yeah. Like, think about this, okay? Oh, and we're talking with a bunch that shares our values. Well, ask the Uyghurs how many values we share with them,
Well, that, for the people that don't have long-term memory,
there's a lot of
those. Let's go back to what I call a failed social experiment called COVID. Do you remember having to line up to go to a store to find out that cheap crap that came in on the boats weren't coming because the world was locked down? Okay. This is what we are going to end up the way we're going. We're going to annoy the Americans. Oh, we've signed an agreement with China, who has, historically have had no positive track record. The European Union, it's I think, like you have said, is on its last breath. It's dying. It's now signed an agreement with the what is it down in South America, hoping to get more. It's billed as the largest trading bloc in the world. Well,
All they're going to
Well,
get
and
is
what does Europe
right.
build, right? I mean, they may have a few cars that they can build. Maybe they'll build it cheaper in Brazil. I don't know, but yeah, we
I
are
can
just
assure you.
trying our darndest to piss everybody off,
Oh,
and we're
we're
going to
doing
have no friends.
well. I think maybe that's part of the deal. But you know, this is what happens when you get the mouse that roars, because this is what we're doing here. And we're not paying attention to the finer details here. And with all due respect to Canadians coast to coast who might be watching this, we're asleep at this. We've slept through the last 10 years. Okay, we got fat, lazy, and frankly dumbed down to the point where the light's going off. At least with me, and I'm almost 3/4 of a century here going on. So I see some things here that are so reminiscent of the screw ups that were done in my lifetime in other parts of the world. Okay. And as I said earlier, you know, every time you get into a situation where your head pokes up above the water line and the American industrial military complex sees something going on there, that's not good for you. Okay. And that's what I think is happening here. Okay. You know, this is just so dangerous. On top of which, selling your soul to a authoritarian dictatorship, which you share no uh, traditional, legal,
Traditional legal,
cultural,
yeah.
linguistic, nothing. You're throwing yourself at them to piss off and destroy a friend, a neighbor, who you share culture with, who you share a language with, who you share trade with, who you share history with, you share geography with.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I guess going back, what do we share with the Communist Party of China? And it goes down to one simple thing. We had, as you called him, and several other people call him, the idiot prince, who
And his father.
unabashedly said that he admired the Chinese and their government because they could make changes on the fly. They could stop this, they could do that. Versus now, where we still have the new government of Canada still pushing through the same things of internet censorship,
Yep.
gun buyback. I mean,
Yep.
you name it, all the things that they don't want you as a Canadian resident to have, because it would be an existential threat to them if we still kept it. Like you mentioned, you can't even get on the internet your favorite radio station now because it happens to be broadcast in the United States.
It's ridiculous, you know. I'm running into you know, the basically censorship of the streaming. Now, it's peculiar because I don't have that problem with if I want to listen to a British station or I want to listen to you know, some other part of the this is a new
Yet,
I may be reading into things, but you know, as I say, I checked with their people, and there's something very screwy about, you know, listening to something which was never a problem before, and all of a sudden, halfway through a half hour of broadcast, it switches to a Canadian station. I didn't ask you to switch. You know, I didn't ask Alexa to switch the broadcast, but it does. And if you ask it, they go, "I know what you're talking about." You know, so there's you don't need to put on a tinfoil hat, obviously, but there's something not, and it just bugs me because it happened this morning, and after all this craziness we've been watching for the last couple of days with our illustrious leadership, you know, you start, whoa, there's something going on here. But like you say, it would be just a coincidence. It's a coincidence that Brookfield was in Beijing the same time that the prime
our
minister
leader
was.
was, yeah.
Yeah,
And
it's a
also
coincidence.
interesting too, in Qatar, yeah.
It's a coincidence. You're right. So you know,
That's right. And we know coincidences are just so happenstance, you know.
that's right. That's right. So, like I said, I'm not. I don't want to alarm people, but don't be complacent because this might be lunatic stuff coming out of our leadership. But if it lands on the or in the ears of the lunatics who take umbrage to this, this is not a good thing. Okay, this is not a good thing.
Well,
And on
I
top
think,
of which, you know, the Chinese are not going to save our backsides. The EU, with all this talk about Greenland, at the end of the day, let's talk a little history here. How did the United States get Alaska? They went Stewart bought it. Okay, right after the
Louisiana
Civil War,
Purchase.
bought it. That's right. Guess what island was bought from Denmark in the Virgin Islands in the early 1900s? Bought it. Okay. Denmark said, you know what, Christians stand down in the Virgin Islands, you can have it because we can't afford it and we don't need it. Little old Denmark. Okay. No disrespect to Denmark, but you know, you sold the Virgin Islands to the Americans. That didn't seem to bother you. So, you know, history has a way of, you know, biting some of these pundits in the behind a little bit, but they don't read history anyway because it's irrelevant.
Right.
Just like those two court rulings, they're irrelevant. Okay, no, they're not. They're very relevant. You got an out of control bunch here who totally disrespects the rule of law and disrespects the voters and disrespects Canadians when making this kind of nonsense deals. Parliament's never been asked about these deals, all these MOUs. No one's ever seen these things. These are all, you know, a lot of trees got cut down to sign these ridiculous deals. One that really got me with China was we're going to export some pet food to China. I remind people about pets in China.
Certain pets.
Yeah, they don't. They're not pets for very long.
That's another diatribe, another
Yeah,
Rick Mercer rant that we can.
I thought there was an irony there. We're going to be selling pet food to China. Okay, that makes total sense to me.
Well, I guess maybe that answered one of our questions. What is it that we make that people want?
Yeah, exactly. By the way, condolences to Scott Moe of Saskatchewan because you got took, buddy. Condolences to Doug Ford in Ontario. You got took, buddy.
You hitched your pony you hitched your wagon to the wrong pony, I think there.
Oh yeah,
Doug,
absolutely.
And you know, I wonder also about Premier Smith in Alberta. I wonder whether she's gotten taken somewhere along the line. You know, these professional grifters, and that's really all they are, have absolutely no loyalty to anybody other than themselves, their companies, and the pursuit of the holy grail called profit.
Power and profit. Well, yeah. In the case of the Liberal Party, there's no question. They don't care about country. They only care about power. Mm-hmm. Staying in power at all costs. Why would you go around openly trying to coerce opposition members to be part of a government by giving him this guy Ma is a complete and utter sleazebag.
Charlatan.
Yeah, Charlotte. That's a nice way of. This guy is just a total sleazebag. But you know, this is what we're dealing with here. You know, and look, politics is a dirty, rotten business. But what this bunch is doing is so un-Canadian, I might add, because we've never really experienced the kind of sleaze that is permeating this bunch, and they utterly and totally disregard any sort of principles. They're so unethical. They've been proven unethical. Yet they go, no, we're not. You know, we're the new government. This is the same guys. What are you talking about?
Yeah,
we bought off.
In reality, too, the current leader of the party was the one that was instrumental in a lot of the stuff that went on in the Freedom Convoy.
That's correct. And if people don't think we're telling the truth here, go to the Globe and Mail in 2022. And go read about the Mark Carney editorials about the Freedom Convoy. And then you tell us who's lying here, okay? Because the internet's forever. Publications that are in even birdcage liners like the Globe and Mail is forever. It's just the way it is. So, you know, don't be taken in by the latest CBC CTV, whitewashing.
Propaganda.
That was before. This is now. No, 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 no. There's a foundational part to being a scumbag. All right. I'm sorry. That's how this. And anyway, we'll leave it at that because today is one of those days where I like I said, I got a little unhinged this week over what we're doing because I have no intention of standing up in front of an Abrams tank because of some screwy thing that
we certainly maybe all want to be that particular one guy in Tiananmen Square that took on the
that's
tanks.
What's in my mind exactly. We're not. No, it's not going to happen.
Well,
Okay.
I would venture to say there would be nobody here that would have the I want to say the balls about it, but that could be taken the wrong way.
It could take, that could be something gender issued. They would be careful.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no. Like I said to our American viewers, listeners, we're not all nuts up here, okay? So please, should things start to go wonky with some of the loons you have in Washington and elsewhere,
with the loons that we have,
you tamp that down fairly quickly, because it's just all this is what happens when cognitively challenged people are given jobs with responsibilities.
That's right. And just to edify that even more properly, if I ever decided I wanted to get into politics, it's only because my family history has gone dead and I can't find anything else. Because I get into politics, they're going to dig all that stuff out.
I'm pretty sure you're not going to get into politics any more than I will, so we're safe there. We're safe.
Yeah, very safe.
All right, we're like the chickens. We get to squawk in the barnyard, and we know what happens to the chickens.
And well, maybe we can become turkeys because I don't think anybody's going to be wanting to eat a turkey for a while. So,
and we could get pardoned too.
We could even test some of that food that we're going to ship off to China.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we've got the 3Ds down today.
Yes. Yeah. I think we do. Anyway, remember, give us a like, subscribe.
Hit that subscribe.
Feel real generous to us and maybe even feel sorry for us because we live in such a screwed up country. Buy us a coffee.
Well, we're trying to balance things out here. So
yeah, doing something.
We're working on it. We're not all nuts. A little unhinged at times, but not all nuts.
That's right. I recall that.
I shall see you anon.
Anon.